So this guy is jumping on a force plate, and then here's the measurements of that force plate. So he's going to do two different jumps. One, he's going to allow gravity to help make him heavy and then jump. And the other one, he's going to try to, as quickly as his feet touch the ground, resist gravity and jump up. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you can see on the bottom, it says what? Soft landing, right? That means he's going to allow his feet to flatten. You'll see his knees bend. And then you'll notice as his weight goes down, naturally his heels come up because he landed well and that weight is moving underneath the ball of his foot, which is called our transverse arch. And so you can see that's when he hits the ground. And then as he's absorbing the ground, there's this dip. That dip, because the plates only measure force into, there's a quick shift called the eccentric portion, meaning the part where you're absorbing, where all your weight's going into your body and none of it's going into the ground just yet. And then you make the decision when it starts to pop up. Do you see how his from the tip,
Yeah.
all of his weight's moving in? And it's not until he decides to push again that that weight picks back up into the plates. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because the plates only measure force into the plate. So everyone has that. It's just called the eccentric portion. So now when he jumps, notice there's another little dip. Why? Because he's doing what with his hands and his body? Preparing himself to what? Jump. Okay. So this little dip right here is what would be the shift in a pitch. He's just doing it with both feet. And then bang, he pushes. And so now weight is leaving the force plate. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay. So real easy thing to understand. Why would, as he's pushing, the weight go down?
Why?
It's not complicated because it only measures you pushing into the plate.
Yeah.
If he's already done his biggest push, the further you see him get away, the less weight is there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So here's one thing I want you to notice. Look how high he gets. And then below is the time. Look how long he's in the air. So think of that as your stride. The further you stride, even if you still throw 57, but your stride, because of your direction and your power, becomes a foot further, appearance to the catcher or the hitter, the time is much sooner for the ball to get there. So you decrease the amount of time that they have to react, whether it's still 57. So there's two things that are always in play when it comes to how do I increase my velocity or how do I increase, or excuse me, decrease the batter's reaction time to my velocity. So now we're going to go to a stiff landing. So when you land stiffly, and this is what happens when we incorrectly tell someone, well, not us incorrectly, but as coaches, we don't explain enough what front side resistance is or whatever analogy anyone is used to you to say, well, we've got to be able to stop that stride leg. A lot of times kids will just try to lock their knee or push back or do all these different things to be as stiff as possible, as quickly as possible. And from a force perspective, we are correct. If I'm stiff for that moment, you'll see that for that moment,
Mm.
he's at 6 times his body weight to where here we just got to about 4 times our body weight. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Yeah, about right there. Actually, let's be smart. 0 degrees. So it spikes right there. And you can notice that what? His knees aren't bent,
As much.
are they? So
For
is he going
sure.
to absorb the energy, all as much of that that 6 times his body weight to use to push? Let's find out. There's his shift, and then there's his push. Look how quickly his weight's dropping. Compare that. Do you see how different that is?
Yes.
So this is our time on the ground. So if we notice from here to where weight drops, from here to when weight drops, two things we don't understand sometimes about power. Power takes time to get used. It is not a bad thing that you're on the rubber for longer. That's not when you need to be fast. You don't need to be as fast as you can off the rubber. You need to use the rubber to get as much energy as you can to create the distance in your stride. Because now we get to my main point here when we talk about energy. Who jumps higher faster, even though they were longer on the ground? The right.
Yeah.
Who gets a ton higher?
The soft landing.
And this is why it's so important to understand what's real and what actually happens versus just going and picking up some words you hear from someone else. Number one, it's called ground contact force and ground reaction force. Not only did more force or be quicker, be stiffer, get off the ground as quickly as possible, not only is there less distance, there's less time in the air. So now let's think about that from actually performance when it comes to pitching. Again, throwing 57 from 38 feet is very different from throwing it from 36. The second piece, where kids struggle the most. When I learn to drive harder, I'm also going to be in the air what? Longer.
Longer.
I'm also going to be on the ground longer. So if I dictate and I create the timing of my pitch by my shoulder and arm, as opposed to where energy is, the first thing that you're always going to happen when you have a better drive is you're not going to know where the ball goes. You're likely going to release it a lot earlier or a lot later. Why? Because you're in the air and it takes more time to be on the ground. So your arm is moving while you're still on the ground, as opposed to when your arm's at three, you're flying off the rubber. And that doesn't necessarily have to be true. And then the other piece of that, he hit the ground there already. Look at how quickly we hit the ground. Our foot flattens. What do we notice?
Evening.
It's higher. Here we're closer to 5 times body weight. Even though he jumped, he hit the ground, okay, with 2 times more body weight than he did with the soft landing, all that energy didn't go back into his body. Because again, what does this measure? Energy back in to the ground. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And again, your ultimate goal with your drive is not to throw hard. It is to get the largest number possible to enter your body because that gives you the opportunity to throw. That is the most proven thing in any research that we've done so far. The higher the ground reaction force upon landing, that's the biggest positive correlation, meaning it's significant. So in research, if you have a positive correlation, it means these two things go together. If you have a significant correlation, it means you actually have an opportunity or should base training off of it. And that the only thing they've ever proven from that is that the higher this number is, the harder those kids throw.
Mhm.
So you can put all the work into trying to be as fast as possible off the rubber. Doesn't mean anything because you're not going to get the same amount of energy into the ground. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then the things that are going to mess us up the most, especially with kids who all the rhythm of their pitch is based off of how they swing that shoulder, is that you're going to freak out because your timing is off. You didn't have timing to begin with. You just swung your shoulder. At some point, your brain knew that your body wasn't providing any energy for you when you hit the ground to use, so you just kept swinging the shoulder as fast as you could. The problem, that's based off more genetics than it is training or ability because you can only swing your shoulder so fast. And if you don't have a longer lever, meaning you don't have a longer arm, so think of someone that's 6'1", 6'2", a lot of people that have longer levers. A lot of them sometimes look like they have what other people would say is bad mechanics, but they can get away with it because they're working off something that has nothing to do with the pitch. It's a mechanical advantage. The longer the lever, the greater the acceleration at the bottom. And then the ball's only 6 ounces. So you can learn when to let it go and hit your spots. Anything that's 6 ounces, you can do whatever you want to it. It's always going to come out of your hand.